Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Endeavour as it slowly moved toward the massive space station called Nexus Prime. The station was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant metal flower, with 12 arms reaching out into space. Each arm belonged to one of the alien races that ruled the galaxy. Jake had been to Nexus Prime many times in the past 10 years, but today felt different. Today, the aliens had called a special meeting. They said it was important for all humans to hear what they had to say. "Captain, we're getting a message from the station," said Lieutenant Danny Clark from his seat at the communication panel. "They want us to dock at Bay 7. "Take us in, Danny," Jake said. He smoothed down his blue uniform and checked his appearance in the reflection of the window. As Earth's top diplomat, he had to look perfect when meeting with the alien leaders. The docking went smoothly, and soon Jake was walking through the long corridors of Nexus Prime with Ambassador Lisa Carter beside him. Lisa was a smart woman, in her 50s, who had spent most of her life learning about alien cultures. She knew how to talk to them without making them angry. "Any idea what this is about?" Jake asked as they walked. Lisa shook her head. The message was very formal, very official. That usually means bad news. They entered the Great Council Chamber, a round room with a high ceiling that seemed to go up forever. 12 different types of aliens sat at a curved table that formed a circle. Each alien looked completely different from the others. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. At the center of the circle stood Speaker Veltar, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. The Zephyrians were one of the oldest races in the galaxy, and they had been in space for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. "Honored humans," Veltar said, his voice echoing in the large room. "We thank you for coming so quickly to hear our decision." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "Decision? What decision?" Veltar picked up a glowing tablet and began to read. "After much thought and discussion, the Galactic Council has reached a final decision about humanity's role in galactic conflicts. From this day forward, all human military forces are forbidden from leaving your solar system during any war or conflict between council members." The words hit Jake like a punch to the gut. He looked at Lisa, who had gone pale. "I'm sorry, Speaker Veltar," Jake said, stepping forward. "I think there's been some mistake. We've been good allies to the council. We've never broken any laws or agreements." "There is no mistake," said another alien, this one covered in green scales. "The council has studied human behavior for 50 years since first contact. We have watched your history, your wars, your methods of fighting. Humans are too dangerous to be allowed in galactic warfare." "Dangerous?" Lisa asked. "How are we dangerous?" "We've never attacked any council member. We've always followed your rules." Veltar's large black eyes seemed sad as he looked at them. "That is exactly the problem, Ambassador Carter. You follow our rules now because you want to be part of our community. But in war, humans change. We have studied your history. When humans fight, they fight with everything they have. They do not know when to stop." A third alien, one that looked like a walking tree, spoke up. "Galactic warfare has rules. We fight until one side surrenders, then we negotiate. Casualties are kept low. Cities are not destroyed. Populations are not harmed. This is how civilized beings conduct war. But humans," Veltar continued, "do not fight civilized wars. When threatened, humans fight to completely destroy their enemies. They target civilians. They destroy cities. They keep fighting even when the battle is hopeless. This kind of behavior has no place in our galaxy." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "That's not fair. Yes, humans have fought terrible wars in the past, but we've learned from our mistakes. We're better now." "Are you?" asked the scaled alien. "What did your people do when the Corvan pirates attacked your mining station on Europa 3 years ago?" Jake remembered the incident. The Corvans had attacked without warning, killing dozens of human workers. Earth's response had been swift and total. They had hunted down every Corvan ship and destroyed their hidden base completely. "We defended ourselves," Jake said. "You wiped them out," Veltar replied. "Every ship, every base, every Corvan involved in the attack. You didn't capture them for trial. You didn't negotiate. You simply eliminated them. They killed innocent people, Lisa said. They were pirates and murderers. Yes, they were criminals, agreed the tree-like alien. But a civilized response would have been to capture their leaders and make them pay for their crimes. Instead, you chose extinction. Veltar stepped closer to the humans. This is why you cannot be allowed to participate in galactic wars. When humans fight, they fight to win at any cost. They do not understand the concept of limited warfare. If we allowed you to join our conflicts, they would become bloodbaths. Jake wanted to argue more, but he could see that the decision was final. All 12 alien races had voted and their minds were made up. So we're prisoners in our own solar system? He asked. Not prisoners, Veltar said gently. Protected neighbors. You are welcome to trade with us, to share knowledge, to be our friends. But when war comes, you must stay home. It is for the good of the entire galaxy. The meeting ended shortly after that. Jake and Lisa walked back to their ship in silence. As the Endeavor pulled away from Nexus Prime, Jake stared out at the stars and felt a deep sadness. Humanity had reached for the stars, only to be told they were too dangerous to be trusted among them. When they returned to Earth, Jake delivered the news to Admiral Ben Rodriguez and General Katie Sullivan at Earth Defense Command. Both military leaders listened in silence as Jake explained the Council's decision. So they think we're too violent, Admiral Rodriguez said when Jake finished. Too uncivilized for their perfect little wars. Maybe they're right, General Sullivan said quietly. Maybe we are too dangerous. Or maybe, Admiral Rodriguez replied, looking out at the stars through the command center's big windows, they just don't understand what real war looks like yet. Jake hoped the Admiral was wrong. He hoped humanity would never have to prove what they were really capable of when everything they loved was threatened. But deep down, he had a feeling that someday, the galaxy would learn why humans fought the way they did. And when that day came, they would understand that sometimes being civilized meant being ready to do uncivilized things to protect what mattered most. 20 years had passed since the Galactic Council banned humans from participating in wars. Captain Alex Parker stood on the bridge of the Earthship Liberty, watching the stars at the edge of human space. Alex was younger than Jake Morrison had been, but he carried the same weight of responsibility for representing humanity among the stars. The Liberty was the most advanced ship humans had ever built. It was fast, well-armed, and equipped with the best technology Earth could produce. But according to the Council's rules, it could never leave the solar system during a conflict. Captain, we're getting strange signals from the outer rim, said Lieutenant Sam Murphy from his position at the sensor station. Sam was a good officer who had been monitoring space communications for 5 years. It sounds like distress calls, but they're coming from everywhere. Alex moved to look at the sensor display. Hundreds of red dots were blinking across the screen, each one representing a call for help from somewhere in the galaxy. This was not normal. Usually there might be 1 or 2 distress signals in a month, not hundreds in a single day. Get me Dr. Maria Santos, Alex ordered. Dr. Santos arrived on the bridge within minutes. She was Earth's best expert on alien life and had spent years studying the different races in the galaxy. She looked tired, as if she had not slept in days. Doctor, what's happening out there? Alex asked. Maria shook her head slowly. Something terrible, Captain. 3 days ago, long-range sensors detected a massive fleet entering our galaxy from beyond the rim. The ships are like nothing we've ever seen before. They're biological, grown rather than built. She activated a holographic display that showed the edge of the galaxy. Strange dark shapes were moving between the stars like a swarm of insects. Who are they? Alex asked. We don't know yet. The Council is calling them the Valeth. They appeared, without warning, and immediately began attacking systems along the outer rim. But Alex, they're not fighting like the Council species usually fight. What do you mean? Maria's face was grim. They're not sending formal challenges or trying to negotiate. They're not following any of the rules of civilized warfare. They just attack and destroy everything they find. Lieutenant Murphy turned from his station. Captain, I'm getting reports from the Council networks. The Vailith have already destroyed 6 star systems completely. Not conquered, destroyed. There's nothing left but empty space. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Nothing left? What about the planets? The populations? Gone, Maria said quietly. According to the reports, the Vailith ships surround a system and then somehow consume everything. The planets, the moons, even the space stations. They take it all and leave nothing behind. On the other side of the galaxy, Speaker Veltar stood in the emergency council chamber on Nexus Prime. Half of the usual council members were missing. Their homeworlds had been among the first to fall to the Vailith attack. Honored members, Veltar said to the remaining aliens, "We must organize our response to this threat according to our traditional methods. I propose we send a formal challenge to the Vailith leadership, demanding they explain their actions." A surviving council member, a crystal being called Kethara, made a sound like breaking glass. "Speaker Veltar, with respect, the Vailith do not respond to our communications. We have sent dozens of messages offering to negotiate, but they ignore us completely. Then we must prepare for a formal military engagement," Veltar replied. "We will gather our fleets and meet them in honorable battle. Once they see our strength, they will surely agree to discuss terms." Meanwhile, the Zephyrian fleet, considered the most powerful in the galaxy, moved to intercept the Vailith swarm near the Kepler system. Admiral Kethalon commanded 200 of the finest ships in the galaxy. His plan was simple and traditional. Arrange his fleet in formal battle formation, demand the enemy surrender, and if they refused, engage in honorable combat until one side gave up. Back on Earth, Dr. Santos worked day and night in her laboratory with engineer Danny Clark and other scientists. They had managed to intercept some Vailith communications, though the signals were unlike anything they had ever heard. "It's not really language as we understand it," Maria explained to Captain Parker during one of their daily briefings. "It's more like instructions, commands flowing through their entire fleet like blood through a body." "You're saying they're controlled by one mind?" Alex asked. "That's what it looks like. Every ship, every creature, all working together as parts of a single organism. But Alex, there's something else, something horrible." Maria showed him recordings they had captured from the destroyed systems. The images were hard to watch. Entire planets stripped bare, their surfaces scraped clean of all life. "They're not just conquering these worlds," Maria said. "They're eating them. Everything organic gets consumed and converted into more Vailith creatures. It's like they're a plague that spreads by consuming everything in their path." Danny Clark, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Dr. Santos, if they keep expanding at this rate, how long before they reach populated areas of the galaxy?" Maria did some quick calculations. "At their current speed, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 months. If they maintain their consumption rate, the entire galaxy could be stripped bare within 2 years." News of the Zephyrian fleet's encounter with the Vailith arrived 3 days later. Captain Parker received the report from Lieutenant Murphy, who looked sick as he read the details. "Captain, the Zephyrian fleet is gone. All 200 ships destroyed." "Destroyed? How?" "According to the last transmission from Admiral Kethalon, the Vailith ignored all attempts at formal communication. When the Zephyrians arranged their fleet, in traditional battle formation, the Vailith simply swarmed them. The battle lasted less than an hour." Alex stared at the report in disbelief. The Zephyrian fleet had been the pride of the galaxy, equipped with weapons and shields developed over thousands of years of civilized warfare. "Sir," Murphy continued, "Admiral Kethalon's final message said the Vailith ships work together like a single creature. They don't follow any battle formations or tactics the Zephyrians could predict. They just overwhelmed them with pure numbers and coordination." Dr. Santos entered the bridge carrying more bad news. "Alex, I've been analyzing the Vailith expansion pattern. They're not random. They're systematically moving toward the most populated areas of the galaxy. They're hunting for the largest concentrations of organic life. How long before they reach Earth?" Alex asked the question he was afraid to hear answered. "If they continue on their current path and nothing stops them, they'll be here in 18 months. Alex looked out at the stars beyond human space. Somewhere, out there, an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced was consuming entire civilizations. The Council's traditional methods of warfare had already failed completely. Their most powerful fleet had been destroyed in less than an hour. For the first time since the Prohibition 20 years ago, Alex wondered if the Council had been wrong about humans. Maybe being too dangerous for civilized warfare was exactly what the galaxy needed right now. He activated the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Parker to Earth Command. Request immediate meeting with Admiral Rodriguez and General Sullivan. Priority Alpha." As the Liberty turned toward Earth, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The galaxy had spent centuries perfecting the art of civilized war, but the Valeth didn't care about civilization. They only understood one thing: complete consumption of everything in their path. Maybe it was time for the galaxy to learn what uncivilized war really looked like. The emergency meeting on Nexus Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Only 6 of the original 12 council races remained. The others had been completely consumed by the Valeth swarm. Their entire civilizations turned into fuel for the growing alien fleet. Speaker Veltar looked much older than he had 20 years ago. His blue skin had turned pale, and his 4 arms shook slightly as he addressed the surviving council members. The great chamber that had once been filled with the proud representatives of 12 species now felt empty and cold. "Honored members," Veltar said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we must face the truth. Our traditional methods have failed. Every fleet we send against the Valeth is destroyed. Every attempt at negotiation is ignored. At this rate, the galaxy will be consumed within 1 year." Councillor Cathara, the crystal being whose homeworld had been one of the first to fall, made a sound like wind through broken glass. "Speaker Veltar, there is one option we have not discussed: the humans." The chamber fell silent. Even mentioning humans in the context of warfare was forbidden by council law. "The humans are prohibited from galactic conflicts," said another council member, a furry creature whose people lived in the far spiral arm. "We made that decision for good reasons." "Those reasons," Cathara replied, "were based on the assumption that our way of war was the right way. But our way of war cannot stop the Valeth. Perhaps it is time to consider that we were wrong." Veltar closed his large black eyes. For 50 years he had believed that the Council's civilized approach to warfare was superior to human savagery. Now, as he watched his galaxy being consumed, he wondered if savagery was exactly what they needed. On Earth, Vice Admiral Kelly Brooks sat in her office at Earth Defense Command, reading intelligence reports from beyond human space. Kelly had taken over from Admiral Rodriguez 5 years ago when he retired. She was known for her sharp mind and her ability to see patterns that others missed. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on her private communication channel. The message was encrypted with codes that only the highest levels of council leadership possessed. Kelly's eyes widened as she read the sender's identification: Councillor Cathara of the Alterian Union. The message was short. "Admiral Brooks, the Council was wrong about humanity. The galaxy needs you now. Will you help us?" Kelly stared at the message for a long time. 20 years ago, the Council had told humanity they were too dangerous to be trusted with galactic warfare. Now they were asking for help. She forwarded the message to Captain Alex Parker aboard the Liberty. Alex received the message while his ship was patrolling the edge of human space. He had been watching the expanding darkness where Valeth-consumed systems used to shine with life. Entire sectors of the galaxy had gone dark in the past months. "Lieutenant Murphy," Alex called to his communications officer. "Get me, Admiral. Brooks on secure channel." When Kelly's face appeared on the screen, Alex could see the weight of decision in her eyes. "Alex, I'm giving you authorization for a reconnaissance mission beyond human space. Take the Liberty and 2 support ships. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with out there." "Admiral, that would violate the Council prohibition." "The Council just asked for our help, Alex. I think the prohibition is no longer in effect." Alex chose Captain Ryan Cooper and Captain Nicole Hayes to accompany him. Both were experienced officers who understood that this mission might change everything. They took their ships, the Falcon and the Eagle, along with Colonel Steve Mitchell's Marine unit for ground support. The 3 human ships crossed the boundary of their solar system for the first time in 20 years. What they found in the outer sectors was worse than any report had described. Entire star systems were gone, replaced by empty space and floating debris. Where the planet Alteria Prime had once orbited its sun, there was nothing but a few asteroids and the twisted remains of space stations. "My God," whispered Captain Hayes over the communication channel. "There's nothing left. How is that even possible?" Dr. Maria Santos, who had joined the mission aboard the Liberty, studied the sensor readings with growing horror. "The Veilith don't just destroy planets," she said. "They consume them completely. Every atom of organic matter, every trace of life, it all gets converted into more Veilith bioships." They found survivors on a damaged space station near what used to be the Corvin system. The refugees were from different alien races, huddled together in the few remaining habitable sections of the station. Their eyes held a terror that Alex had never seen before. An elderly Zephyrian named Telmoth spoke for the survivors. His voice shook as he described the Veilith attack on his homeworld. "They came without warning," he said. "Thousands of bioships, each one the size of a city. They didn't demand surrender. They didn't try to communicate. They just began consuming everything. The oceans, the forests, the cities, the people, all of it fed into their ships and turned into more Veilith creatures." Colonel Mitchell interviewed the survivors while Dr. Santos studied tissue samples from dead Veilith creatures they found floating in space. Both discovered disturbing facts about their enemy. "These things aren't just aliens," Mitchell reported to Alex. "They're a biological weapon designed for one purpose: complete consumption of organic life. Every creature in their swarm is specialized for a different task, but they all work together like parts of a single organism." Maria's analysis was even more frightening. "Alex, the Veilith don't reproduce like normal species. They grow new creatures by consuming other life forms. Every planet they destroy makes them stronger and gives them more ships. They're not just invading the galaxy, they're turning it into themselves." The human ships were preparing to return to Earth when their sensors detected a Veilith patrol fleet approaching. Alex had a choice: run back to human space or engage the enemy and risk starting an interstellar incident. "All ships, battle stations," Alex ordered. "Let's see what these things can do." The battle was unlike anything the humans had trained for. The Veilith ships moved in perfect coordination, surrounding the human vessels and attacking from all directions at once. But the human ships had something the Veilith had never encountered: individual commanders making independent decisions. When Captain Cooper's ship, the Falcon, was surrounded, he didn't follow standard battle formation. Instead, he dove straight through the enemy formation, firing at maximum power and breaking their coordination. Captain Hayes used her ship's superior speed to strike at Veilith ships from unexpected angles. The battle lasted only 20 minutes, but when it was over, the entire Veilith patrol fleet was destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost, though all 3 had taken damage. "How did we do that?" Captain Hayes asked over the communication channel. "Their ships outnumbered us 3-1. Dr. Santos had been monitoring the battle from the Liberty's science station. "I think I know," she said. "The Veilith are used to fighting enemies that follow predictable patterns. All the Council species use similar battle tactics because they've been fighting civilized wars for centuries. But we don't fight like they do." Alex studied the sensor readings from the battle. Every Veilith ship we destroyed transmitted data back to their main fleet before it died. "They're learning about us, adapting to our tactics." Colonel Mitchell looked grim. "Then we better make sure our next engagement counts, because they won't be surprised twice." As the 3 human ships headed back toward Earth, Alex knew that everything had changed. Humanity had just fired the first shots in a war that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Veilith now knew that humans existed, and they would be coming. But for the first time since the crisis began, Alex felt something that had been missing from all the Council's efforts: hope. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting civilized warfare, But civilized warfare couldn't stop the Veilith. Maybe it was time for some uncivilized warfare instead. Back on Earth, Admiral Brooks received Alex's report and immediately called an emergency meeting with General Sullivan and the Earth Defense Council. As she read the details of the battle, she realized that the 20-year prohibition had been lifted not by council decree, but by necessity. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when everything they cared about was threatened. And the Veilith were about to discover why the council had been so afraid of human warfare in the first place. Admiral Ben Rodriguez stood before the Earth Defense Council, his weathered face serious as he looked at the emergency assembly. At 70 years old, he had come out of retirement to lead humanity's war effort. The council chamber was packed, with military leaders, scientists, and government officials who had been called to decide the fate of not just Earth but the entire galaxy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rodriguez said, "the situation is simple. The Veilith have consumed half the galaxy and are moving toward our sector. The council species have failed to stop them using traditional warfare. If we don't act now, every living thing in the galaxy will be dead within 6 months." General Katie Sullivan sat at the front table, studying battle reports from Captain Parker's engagement. Katie had spent 20 years preparing for this moment, even though she had hoped it would never come. "Admiral Rodriguez," said the Secretary of Defense, "the Council prohibited us from galactic warfare because they said we were too dangerous. Are you proposing we prove them right?" "I'm proposing we save the galaxy," Rodriguez replied. "But yes, we're going to have to fight this war the human way, and the human way is going to shock every alien species that survives to see it." "General," Sullivan stood up, "before we make this decision, everyone needs to understand what we're talking about. The Council species fight limited wars. They target military ships, avoid civilian casualties, and stop fighting when the enemy surrenders. But the Veilith don't surrender. They don't negotiate. They consume everything they encounter." She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red areas mark the regions already consumed by the Veilith. To stop an enemy like this, we have to fight a war of extinction. Every Veilith ship must be destroyed. Every Veilith creature must be killed. We cannot allow a single one to escape, because if even a few survive, they will rebuild and continue consuming. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Secretary of Defense spoke first. "General Sullivan, you're talking about genocide." "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. The Veilith have already committed genocide against 6 council species. They're not going to stop until they've consumed everything living in the galaxy. Our choice is simple. We commit genocide against them, or they commit genocide against everyone else." Admiral Rodriguez took over the briefing. "The council species can't make this choice because their entire culture is built around civilized warfare. They literally cannot conceive of the kind of total war necessary to stop the Veilith. But humans can. We've done it before." The vote was unanimous. Earth would deploy its full military force against the Veilith with no restrictions and no limits. For the first time in 20 years, human warships would leave the solar system with orders to kill everything they encountered. Captain Alex Parker received his new orders aboard the Liberty. He would command the first wave of Earth's fleet, consisting of 50 warships and 10,000 Marines. His mission was simple: find the main Veilith fleet and begin the systematic destruction of their species. The human fleet that left Earth 3 days later was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were painted black to make them harder to spot against space. They carried no diplomatic equipment, no surrender protocols, no means of communication with the enemy. They were built for one purpose: destroying everything they encountered. Dr. Maria Santos had made a breakthrough discovery that changed everything. Working with samples from the destroyed Veilith patrol ships, she had found a way to create a biological weapon that would target the Veilith's hive mind connection. "Alex," she explained to Captain Parker as the fleet moved toward the first Veilith-controlled system, "the virus I've developed will spread through their bioships like a plague, but it has to be delivered directly into their largest ships, the ones that control the swarm." "How do we get close enough?" Alex asked. "Someone has to ram a ship carrying the virus directly into a Veilith command vessel. It's a suicide mission." Captain Ryan Cooper volunteered immediately. "My ship is the fastest in the fleet," he said during the fleet briefing. "If anyone can get through their defenses, it's the Falcon." The Battle of Kepler Station began at dawn on October 15, 2045. The human fleet faced the largest Valeth swarm yet encountered, over 3,000 bioships arranged in a massive sphere around what used to be the Kepler system. Unlike the Council fleets, the humans didn't announce their presence or demand surrender. They simply attacked. Captain Nicole Hayes led the first wave, her ship Eagle diving straight into the heart of the Valeth formation. Behind her came 20 other human warships, all firing at maximum power and moving in patterns the Valeth couldn't predict. The Valeth response was immediate and overwhelming. Their bioships moved like a living cloud, surrounding the human vessels and attacking from all directions. But the humans had studied the recordings from their previous battle and learned from it. Colonel Steve Mitchell commanded the Marine Assault ships. His job was to board damaged Valeth vessels and plant explosive charges in their vital systems. It was dangerous work that required his Marines to fight inside alien ships filled with hostile creatures. "Remember," Mitchell told his troops over the communication system, "these things aren't just enemies, they're plague carriers. Every Valeth creature we kill is a victory for every species in the galaxy." Sergeant Tommy Phillips led the first boarding party onto a damaged Valeth bioship. What they found inside was a nightmare of living walls and creatures that seemed to be part of the ship itself. "Colonel," Phillips reported, "these ships are alive. The walls are breathing, and I swear the floor is trying to grab our feet." "Plant the charges and get out," Mitchell ordered. "We're not here to study them, we're here to kill them." The battle raged for 8 hours. Human ships were destroyed, but for every human vessel lost, the Valeth lost 10. The key difference was that humans adapted their tactics during the fight, while the Valeth continued to follow their programmed responses. Captain Parker coordinated the fleet from the Liberty, watching as his ships used tactics that would have horrified the Council species. When Valeth bioships tried to retreat, human vessels hunted them down and destroyed them. When Valeth creatures attempted to surrender by going dormant, human Marines boarded their ships and killed them anyway. "Alex," Dr. Santos called from her station. "The main Valeth command ship is in the center of their formation. It's the size of a small moon." "Ryan, are you ready?" Alex asked Captain Cooper. "Ready as I'll ever be," Cooper replied from the Falcon. His ship had been modified to carry Dr. Santos's biological weapon, along with enough explosives to ensure the virus would spread throughout the Valeth command vessel. Cooper's final run was a thing of terrible beauty. The Falcon accelerated to maximum speed, weaving between Valeth bioships while every weapon in the enemy fleet tried to stop him. Human ships provided cover fire, sacrificing themselves to clear a path for Cooper's suicide mission. "Tell my wife I love her," Cooper said over the communication channel as the Falcon reached the Valeth command ship. The explosion lit up the entire system. Cooper's ship, carrying the biological weapon, punched through the command vessel's hull and detonated inside its core. Within minutes, the virus began spreading through the Valeth hive mind network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Valeth bioships throughout the system began convulsing and dying as the virus destroyed their connection to the hive mind. Without central coordination, the individual creatures couldn't function. "My God," whispered Captain Hayes as she watched. "Thousands of Valeth ships simply stop moving and begin to break apart. It's working." But the victory came at a terrible cost. Half of the human fleet was destroyed and Captain Cooper was dead. As the surviving human ships regrouped, Alex realized that this was only the beginning. The virus would spread to other Valeth swarms, but it would take time. Meanwhile, human forces would have to continue fighting and dying to keep the enemy from consuming more worlds. Dr. Santos monitored the virus's progress from the Liberty's science lab. "Alex, the biological weapon is spreading through their network, faster than I expected. But some Valeth swarms are isolating themselves, cutting off contact with infected ships. How long before all of them are affected?" Alex asked. "At this rate, maybe 6 months. But the isolated swarms will keep fighting and they'll try to rebuild their numbers by consuming more planets." Alex looked out at the debris field that had once been the largest Valeth fleet in the galaxy. The humans had won their first major battle, but the war was far from over. And he knew that every victory would come at a terrible price. The galaxy was learning what human warfare really looked like. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't civilized, and it wasn't honorable, but it was effective. And sometimes being effective was more important than being civilized. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Station, Captain Nicole Hayes watched the last Valeth bioship explode in a brilliant flash of light. Her ship, the Eagle, had been hunting down the final scattered remains of the alien swarm for weeks. Now finally, it was over. Confirmed destruction of target, Hayes said into her communication system. This is Eagle to Fleet Command. The last known Valeth vessel has been eliminated. The response came from Admiral Kelly Brooks aboard the command ship stationed near what used to be Nexus Prime. Confirmed, Captain Hayes. After 6 months of war, the Valeth threat has been completely eliminated. Across the galaxy, human ships reported the same thing. Every Valeth bioship had been found and destroyed. Every swarm had been hunted down and eliminated. Dr. Maria Santos's biological weapon had done its work, but human forces had finished the job by tracking down every isolated group that had tried to survive. The cost had been enormous. Earth had lost 40% of its fleet and thousands of brave soldiers. Captain Ryan Cooper was just one name on a long list of heroes who had died to save the galaxy. But the mission was complete. Not a single Valeth creature remained alive anywhere in known space. The surviving council species slowly began to gather on New Nexus, a space station built near the ruins of their old capital. Only 4 of the original 12 races had survived. The Valeth invasion. The others existed now only in the memory banks of their few remaining refugees. Speaker Veltar looked much older than his already advanced years as he prepared for the most important speech of his life. The Great Assembly. Hall was smaller than the old one and half empty, but the few dozen aliens present represented all that remained of galactic civilization. Fellow survivors, Veltar began, his forearms trembling slightly. We gather today to thank the humans for saving our galaxy and to formally apologize for our terrible mistake. Admiral Kelly Brooks sat in the front row with Ambassador Lisa Carter, who had returned to diplomatic service for this historic moment. Behind them sat Captain Alex Parker, General Katie Sullivan, and Dr. Maria Santos. They were the human representatives who would decide the future relationship between Earth and the surviving alien species. 50 years ago, Veltar continued, we banned humans from galactic warfare because we believed they were too dangerous, too uncivilized for our sophisticated approach to conflict. We thought our way of fighting was superior because it was clean, limited, and followed ancient rules of honor. The crystal being Kethara spoke up from her position at the council table. We were fools. Our civilized warfare was only possible because we had never faced a real threat to our existence. When the Valeth came, our rules became our weakness. Veltar nodded sadly. The humans tried to warn us. When we first met them, they showed us their history of warfare. We saw their willingness to fight without limits when threatened, and we called it barbaric. We did not understand that sometimes barbarism is necessary for survival. Ambassador Carter stood to address the assembly. Speaker Veltar, with respect, humanity didn't fight the Valeth to prove a point. We fought them because they threatened everything we care about, including our alien friends. That's what humans do when faced with extinction. And that, Veltar replied, is exactly what we failed to understand. You see, honored humans, we have spent thousands of years believing that intelligence meant controlling our violent instincts. We thought that advanced civilizations should fight only limited wars with minimal casualties. General Sullivan spoke for the first time during the meeting. The problem with that thinking is that it only works when everyone agrees to the same rules. The Valeth didn't care about your rules. They couldn't be negotiated with or reasoned with. They could only be stopped. Dr. Santos had been studying reports about the Valeth expansion since the war ended. The evidence suggests that the Valeth had consumed dozens of galaxies before reaching ours. Every time they encountered civilizations that tried to fight them using limited warfare. Every time those civilizations were completely consumed. Until they met humans, added Captain Parker. We were the first species they encountered that was willing to fight a war of extinction against them. Speaker Veltar closed his large black eyes. Captain Parker, that is the truth we must face. When survival is at stake, being civilized means being willing to do uncivilized things. You saved us by becoming the monsters our enemies feared most. The formal ceremony continued for another hour, with the surviving council species offering humanity full membership in their government and leadership of their combined military forces. But the real conversation happened afterward when the diplomats and military leaders met privately. The question now, Admiral Brooks said to the small group, is what kind of galaxy we want to rebuild. Cathara's crystal form seemed to glow, brighter as she spoke. Admiral Brooks, we want to rebuild a galaxy that can defend itself. We want to learn from humans how to fight real wars, not just the games we used to play. Captain Jake Morrison, now an elderly man serving as Earth's senior ambassador, had been quiet throughout most of the meeting. Finally, he spoke. 50 years ago you banned us because you said we didn't understand civilized warfare. You were right. We don't fight civilized wars because we know that when everything you love is threatened, there's no such thing as civilized warfare. There's only survival. The meeting ended with an agreement that would reshape the galaxy. Humans would help establish new defense forces, but these forces would be trained in human military doctrine. Never again would the galaxy face an existential threat while handicapped by artificial rules about proper warfare. Dr. Santos was appointed as the first director of Galactic Biological Defense. Her job was to monitor space for new threats and develop countermeasures before they could spread. She established monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, staffed by both humans and aliens working together. The Veleth won't be the last threat we face, she explained to her new staff during their first meeting. The universe is vast and dangerous. Somewhere out there, other threats are growing and spreading. When they come, we need to be ready. 6 months later, the first class of alien cadets arrived at the new Galactic Defense Academy on Earth. Young members of the surviving council species came to learn human military tactics, strategy, and most importantly, human military philosophy. General Sullivan personally addressed the first graduating class. You are here to learn how to protect your worlds and your people. Some of what we teach you will seem brutal or excessive. You will learn to target civilian populations when necessary, to fight without mercy, and to continue fighting even when the situation seems hopeless. A young Zephyrian cadet raised her hand. General Sullivan, how do we know when such extreme measures are justified? Sullivan's answer was simple and direct. When the alternative is extinction, when everything you love faces complete destruction, you do whatever it takes to survive. That's not barbarism. That's the most civilized thing you can do. The Academy's motto, carved in stone above the entrance, captured the hard lesson the galaxy had learned: peace through superior firepower, survival through strength, civilization through the willingness to be uncivilized when necessary. As Captain Parker stood looking up at those words, he thought about Captain Cooper and all the others who had died to save the galaxy. They had proven that sometimes the most civilized thing to do was to embrace your capacity for violence in defense of those who couldn't defend themselves. The galaxy was safe for now, but Parker knew that new threats would come eventually. When they did, the galaxy would be ready. They had learned the most important lesson in the universe, that survival sometimes requires becoming the monster your enemies fear most. And humans had taught them that lesson well.